Hello and welcome. I'm your host, author Ryan M. Oliver, and this is the Mighty Books Podcast. Hello, everyone. Welcome back to another episode of the Mighty Books Podcast. Today with me, I have author Charlie Rott. Charlie, how you doing today?
I'm doing pretty well.
Good to have you on. So we're here to talk about your book. What is the title of your book?
It's called Closed Campus.
And what is Closed Campus about?
It takes place on an island that has a reform school that uses draconian methods in order to, quote unquote, reform its students or
Mhm.
inmates, whichever. Probably it's probably the better word. I think that's what I used was inmates. So,
Inmates.
but yeah, it's more like a prison than it is like a reform school. It's a very nasty place that you don't want to end up. So
It's not a carnival. You want to just go hang out and enjoy yourself with your friends. It's want to avoid
yeah,
that place.
yeah.
By draconian methods, just so people are fully aware, what do you mean by that?
Up to and including things that would be considered uh psychological and physical torture, things of that nature. It's a place that uses like long-term solitary confinement and things of that nature. There's a lot of violence between staff and inmates, usually sort of as kind of a messed up teaching tool, like,
Okay.
I'll teach you not to mess with me again, kind of thing.
So you're saying it's not monitored over by any kind of federal entity or state entity whatsoever.
No, it's it's kind of separate. It's its own independent operation.
Yeah,
So, yeah.
yeah.
It's
And they,
and kind of
okay,
a dystopian future, a pretty messed up world that it
okay,
exists in.
okay. Very. That would make sense. Although
Yeah,
there was a documentary that came out about not reform schools, but for like schools for troubled teens. I think it was back in
right.
the early 2000s or something like that. It came out just recently, and it had some cultish type dealings, which was just wild to watch. It was like actually a documentary on Netflix, so it wasn't violent per se as what you're alluding to in Closed Campus, but it was definitely got some wickedly nasty psychological trauma that these people dealt with.
Yeah.
Yeah. So what inspired this tale?
Um, I think what set me on the path to writing it was I hope this isn't a problem. It's a little bit dark on the subject matter. I had a friend who he was involved in an officer involved shooting, and it
Oh,
just kind of came out of nowhere. I didn't even know what happened to him. He basically he pulled a gun, and the reasons are kind of complex. I'm convinced that he wanted to be shot because
oh,
of
okay.
something that had happened. And so I ended up writing the book after sort of having this change in perspective on people that committed crimes for various reasons, because I sort of had a mirror held up to myself after I noticed all of the comments about my friend under the article that were just absolutely heinous.
Hmm.
So um, from there, I developed sort of an interest in learning about prison culture and just things that go on inside such facilities and why people end up there. And somewhere along the way, because of all of that, I ended up looking into some of these reform schools that existed in the United States, and some of them are they're absolutely horrific. There's just a whole numbers of stories that just make what happens in the book seem pretty tame. Let's
Oh
just
no.
say that. Yeah.
So how long did you research this not so flowery topic? Uh to get enough get to give not enough expertise, I will say, to write your book?
Um, I think about 6 years
Oh
total.
wow.
Yeah.
Wow. Dove in on the I mean it makes sense. It makes sense. You want to include everything or
Yeah,
you want to be realistic, having those
exactly.
minor
Yeah.
details. You have to did you interview anybody or you just do a lot of
Many,
reading?
many people, different
Really?
backgrounds, ranging from having been in prison to having worked in a prison to people that came to America from different countries because that's part of the story.
Okay.
Um, and just yeah, a lot of different interviews with a lot of different people. So
Yeah, it helps. Now, do those
uh,
people ever read your story at all to kind of see if you hit it on the head?
a couple of them did, yeah, a
Okay.
couple of them.
Yeah. Were they
I don't know
pretty?
about the rest. Most of them, these were people I spoke to and didn't have any further contact with afterward.
Okay.
So
Okay.
yeah,
Well, that's good that you did the research, though. Sometimes that intimate research can be huge. It can be it's just a huge add-on to the realism of the story.
yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely.
Now, is this a one-off? Is this a singular story, or is this going to be there's going to be continuation with this?
I left off in such a way as to allude to the possibility, excuse me,
Okay.
of a sequel, but
Okay.
right now the sequel is kind of up in the air. I'm not really sure what it's going to take to write it. I mean, I have a general idea, and that's going to require a great deal of research and in a different area, mostly the inner workings of the court system and things of that nature. So it's a
Ooh.
little above my pay grade right now. So,
Yeah, anything to do with law, unless you like did the job, I feel like it's a very daunting task to try to learn anything around that. The prison system seems a little more like you could actually take a bite out of that one little bit at a time and understand the culture a little bit. But law has so many ins and outs and loopholes and huge books and volumes of information. You have to at least have some knowledge. The jargon alone is absurd. So, I
oh
mean,
yeah,
yeah, I
yeah.
can't imagine. I cannot imagine.
I had a difficult time just trying to figure out how the charges would work for the main character and how she would end up at the facility. So there was a lot of research into the differences around like murder versus manslaughter, you know, first degree, second degree, all that other fun stuff. And I was tearing my hair out with that for, I don't know, at least 6 months
Oh,
talking
wow.
with people. I spoke to a couple of people about you know, like how is this supposed to work? I did speak with one person, was I think he was a former JAG lawyer or something of that nature. And so that kind of helped me, you know, sort of get an idea considering what happens and what she's charged with and why, you know,
Yeah.
she's given a plea deal and blah blah blah. There's a lot of things that go into it. So just with that one little taste of it really makes the sequel very daunting to think about.
Yeah, I mean, maybe the law isn't necessarily the key focus. You can probably write a majority of it without having all the super details. And then after you get the main body of the story, go back and add those micro details that'll make it really, obviously that you've done the research more
Yeah.
realistic. That would be the only way I could think of even tackling something like that. It's something I don't know. It's like, here's the main body, and then add the little fine stuff after I get the house built.
Yeah, that's kind of what I'm doing with some of my other projects right now is sort
Sure.
of fleshing it out and adding in the details as I go, you
Sure.
know. So, yeah.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense anyway. I mean, that progression wise, logistically, I think that is the best way to go about it. Let's just say. I mean, when you talk about building a house, you got to build the frame first, get the roof on, and then you'll get the minor trim down and all the small stuff after the fact. You don't try to worry about
Right.
that while the foundation is being laid. Yeah, it's one of those deals. How long did it take you to write Closed Campus?
I think the actual process of writing it was about I would say about a year and a half.
Okay.
And most of that was just because of new information coming to me as I was writing and going, okay, well, this doesn't really align with how this would work, so I need to go back and change it. So it was a little difficult.
Yeah.
But yeah,
I saw that it came out in 2020.
yes,
So were you a COVID writer also?
a little bit. Yeah, at that point it was wrapping up. I
Okay.
started writing it in 2017.
Oh, okay. Okay.
Yeah, but I was doing edits early in lockdown and and all that fun stuff.
Yeah.
So yeah.
I get that. I get that. A lot of folks I've talked to have become authors because of the whole COVID thing. And they had time. They're like, well, let's pull this out of the closet and play with it. But so I was curious. But yeah, I was similar as you did. I had started way before that, and then it just kind of aligned up. That's kind of when I was working on it, is when it hit. So, but anyway, anyway, are there going to be other books that you're doing other stories not related to closed campus?
Yes, definitely. I have
Okay.
a few that are being worked on right now, actually.
Ooh, ooh,
So.
fancy. Yeah. First draft done already? You just doing edits, or you're still in the throngs of the first draft?
I do have one that the first draft is completed, and basically what I'm doing now is sort of just going over it and converting it from first person narrative to third person since when I originally wrote it, because it's been sitting in a drawer since circa 2015, I believe.
Been a minute.
Yeah. Um, so yeah, that one's hopefully going to be ready sometime this year. I guess we'll find out probably next few months. So
So why the change from first to third? Just be to get a little flow better, or
yeah, it's I found because Closed Campus uses a first person narrative, and that was mostly due to the subject matter and to kind of aid in the psychological horror aspect to have it from the perspective of the character. But with this new one, there's a lot kind of going on in the background, and when you do a first person narrative, it's much more restrictive because there's things that happen around the character that they don't necessarily see.
true.
So it helps to just kind of allow the other characters to have their time to shine and stuff like that. So
That makes a lot of sense. Yeah, because the good thing about narrative is you can at least see what they're doing and also hear their thoughts because they are just rambling on about their reservations, their concerns, their fears, their excitement, and it's not necessarily dialogue, but the yeah. So do you prefer first or third, or do you not really care? You're good with both.
I think I would have a preference for third at this point.
Yeah,
When I first started out, I preferred more the first person perspective since it was a little bit more straightforward for me as
yeah,
an author. But
yeah.
as time went on, third person became the preference.
Okay. Yeah, I know I definitely prefer third. I wouldn't mind trying a first narrative. I've done narrative before for school and other things like that, but for an actual story, I don't think I've ever done a first person. I've always gravitated towards third for some weird reason. Kind of look at it like a movie almost. Like that's in my head. I've always seen kind of like a movie,
Yeah,
if that makes sense. Now,
yeah,
you said so this book, Closed Campus is genre of horror.
right. Yeah.
Are your other ones too?
Some of them are, some of them aren't.
Okay.
I have three areas that I write in genres, I should say. Horror, fantasy, and science fiction. So
Oh, okay.
the one that I was talking about earlier that I'm hoping to have done in the next few months falls under the realm of fantasy. So
Yeah.
be very different from Closed Campus.
Oh yeah. Well, I mean, you can
So,
use your horror writing in your fantasy too. Honestly, that's kind of the
oh yeah,
the kind of cool part. I mean, you can take all sorts of elements of every genre and throw it into one. So,
yeah,
fantasy, you can
mix
have
them
a
up.
lot. You have a lot of creative liberties. I mean, you do anyway, but fantasy is really creative liberty.
Oh yeah,
Yeah.
definitely.
Yeah. Now, how long is Closed Campus?
In terms of
Let's go word count.
word
Like
count,
more.
I don't remember exactly. I think it was over 120,000 words.
That's solid. Yeah,
Yeah,
that'll do it. Yeah,
yeah,
page count can be deceptive depending on how big your font is.
yeah, definitely.
Totally. Now let's see. Now does when you get done with, do you have a set schedule when you write, or is it kind of a fly by the seat of your inspiration?
I would say it's more the latter.
Yeah. I
Yeah,
mean, yeah.
especially with some of the some of my current projects where I'm kind of learning as I go.
Yeah.
And I so sometimes I'll put the book aside to do a little bit of extra research or read a couple of books relevant to the material and you know so it's yeah, just kind of touch and go.
Yeah. So I mean that brings up another question. So when you are writing a project, I know some people do not like to read while they are working. Others love it. Where do you fall into that category?
Um, I would say I'm somewhere in the middle since
Okay.
a lot of the reading is
Research based.
nonfiction things,
Oh,
so I
okay.
kind of have a tendency to just go all out with that,
Yeah.
since I really want to move the project forward as quickly as possible, but at the same time I kind of burn myself out on it a little bit. So
Yeah. You got to
yeah.
find that middle ground between, working hard and trying to take care of yourself at the same time.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, that makes it's a painful process to figure that out. And everyone's different. Everyone's different, especially with schedules and everything. If you got, you need to work and make money and do things like that. And it's like, oh, then after work, I have things to do. Like, well, I want to write, but I have things to do. So it's kind of a pain in the butt.
Oh yeah, definitely.
So I know for horror can have some pretty gnarly scenes in it and hard to ones to actually write, like emotionally it can be challenging. Was there any scene or chapter in particular that was particularly challenging for you to write?
Yeah, there were a few. Most of them were centered around scenes that take place with the main character in
Sure.
solitary confinement and
Oh, okay.
adding in things that people had done while they were in there and things that they kind of did to sort of, pass the time and essentially keep themselves sane. And so I think those were definitely the most difficult.
Solitary confinement, you know what? It's crazy as a joke. I mean, a lot of us as parents are like, "Oh, solitary confinement sounds awesome. I'm left alone. It's quiet. I can sleep." But after those 12 hours, we need some stimulus.
Oh yeah, definitely.
There's a few videos I've seen that of guys putting themselves into, I want to say it was 3 days, and those 3 days were just absolutely torturous. Nothing to do
Mhm.
but sit there with your own thoughts. And they were exercising, counting dots on the walls. And I mean, what was some tactics that the people you researched employed?
One was pacing back and forth and counting her footsteps as she went, and just kind of going like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, turn, and so on and so forth. And another was sort of a relaxation technique of laying on the floor and then tensing her feet and then, her legs and kind of moving upward and just things of that nature.
The things you have to do to try to occupy yourself. We're so good at being bored.
Yeah.
There's some guy on YouTube and I can't remember, Vsauce, I think his name is. He did one where they tested boredom versus pain if you had to choose between either one. And they had like this electroshock thing where you touch it and you get zapped. You're in a room full of nothing, no magazines, no pictures, no clocks, no nothing. You can't have your phone in there. You can't have a book, anything. So you're sitting there waiting, you're waiting for your turn to get interviewed or something. And you're there for like 30, 45 minutes and there's timing to see how long this person goes from doing nothing to, oh, let's see if this hurts me. Ow. And they just keep doing it to occupy themselves. It is ridiculous. I'm like, wow, we are just such weird creatures.
Oh, very,
But oh my God, I love it. In your books, do you hide any secrets for like those close to you to find?
Yeah, there is kind of a little thing that I do with my books that are probably only going to be noticed by people that I know, but basically, I I just have kind of an awkward and somewhat goofy group of friends, and sometimes they will just say something in the middle of a conversation or just suddenly, and it comes out all wrong, and it just sounds really funny. And so sometimes those kinds of things get worked into the story as part of the dialogue. There's
Sure.
usually
Oh yeah.
just like one, maybe two in a book.
Well, I
So
would hope so. I pulled some of my best dialogue from people just riffing and being silly and
yeah.
being completely dumb. I mean, it's totally okay. I think that's better anyway. It gives it more realism. If it's too planned, it just sounds chunky and clunky and doesn't flow very well. So you have to have some personality in there too.
Oh yeah.
I mean, that's fun. That's the part of it. You have to enjoy it. You really have to enjoy it. Uh, on an average day, how often are you writing or working on your stories?
Usually a few hours at a time.
Yeah.
Uh, somewhere between 2 to 6, I would say. It just kind
Oh
of
wow.
depends. Like if it's a weekend and I've got nothing better to do, then I can afford, like 6 hours or something.
That's awesome.
And so if it's at a point where maybe I have more to do that day, then it's more like, an hour or so, and just having issues with trying to make something work and having it just not flow properly, because sometimes there's just not a good day for writing for some reason.
Yeah.
And so that usually limits it as well.
Is there things that so does writing energize you or drain you?
I would say that it can do a little bit of both.
Yeah.
Uh,
Especially if it's a grind. It's just like I
yeah.
can pull four words an hour out of you. It's
hmm
rough. Yeah.
When it's like a new idea, or I finally make something click, then I have this period of time for a couple of hours where I'm just really excited, like, oh my God, I finally figured this out. I can finally make this work, like I've been struggling with this for 2 weeks or whatever. And
I
then,
love that.
it just, yeah, I just burn myself out on it after a couple hours and
That's the truth.
go.
I've been really trying hard to pace myself with things instead of going 12. Like when I first started writing, I was doing as many hours as I possibly could. And it was getting to the point where I was so darn tired I couldn't think straight. So it's like making sure I can limit myself to if I can do a couple hours. For me, an hour is about as good as I can get just because I'm busy. But get distracted a lot with kids and whatnot. But anyway, what if when you are unfocused or you can't quite you got a blockage, you just can't focus. Is there anything you do to kind of hone in that energy and trying to get yourself back into the grindstone?
Usually just trying to kind of allow myself to mull it over in the back of my mind while I'm doing something else usually helps sort of clear some of that stuff up.
Hmm.
Like last year I started working with like growing a garden, and
Okay.
actually, so sometimes I'll just go out and do something like that, or just basic things that might need to be done just around the house or whatever. And it just kind of lets me sort of think about it without actually thinking about it. And usually
Hmm.
over a period of a few days, and sometimes a couple of weeks, I can kind of work it out if it's particularly problematic.
Yeah, I found with my current story, I'm having a harder time lately understand or gaining that kind of that downtime, that just kind of mull over time. Uh, Current job is a lot more mental gymnastic-esque, so having to think a lot more and process information a lot more, and so not a lot of spare room for ideas to float and the puzzle pieces that the person in the back room of your head trying to figure out the puzzle. So I'm definitely struggling with that, but having those hobbies like gardening or doing something where you can do things without really, you can almost do it instinctually.
Yeah.
Yeah, I need to do that more. Just go for a walk or something, or handle some yard work where it's just okay. Well, mow a little bit and try not to think about it. And eventually, it'll
Yeah.
come to you. That's the hope.
Yeah.
It's the hope at least.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Otherwise, I'm just focusing on it so much that I'm just driving myself crazy. Like, why won't this work? You know?
Oh God. And that's worse when you're not writing, you're thinking about writing because now you're guilting yourself like I need to go back to the desk and work and
Exactly, exactly. I
it's
sit there and tell myself, like, you should be writing, like, why are you goofing off? You should be writing?
because you need it. You need to goof off every now and then. It's important to goof off. You got to have fun. You got to go enjoy yourself. I mean,
Exactly.
do you have like a word count you try to hit or
I do try to aim for at least 100 grand, so
oh wow,
100,000.
for
So
per story.
yeah, most of the ones that I work on, it's pretty easy to hit that
Really
amount. My early ones, I think were closer to about 85,000.
still
Um,
good.
yeah.
Yeah, it's still a long,
Uh,
it's still a solid story. But how about per day?
oh, like per day, I would say about 2,000 to 3,000, somewhere in that ballpark.
Yeah, that's solid. If I can have a 500 word day, I'm pretty happy. If I can make it. I mean, I did it where I was doing like 100 like minimum because it was just so hard for me to actually get anything done. I was like I got to have 100 words at least minimum a day. And after you work on the story every day, you just get a lot more fluent and you don't have to prep yourself. You know what you're doing. After about, I think I did it for 100 days, 100 words for 100 days just to see where I was going. My average ran at about 500, 450 to 500.
Hmm.
So, because I had some days where I was exactly 100, and other days I went to, the 1,000 to 2,000 range, and it just averaged out really nice. But it seems like the way to do it is to read and write a bunch all the time as much as you can.
Yeah, definitely.
What when you're not researching and you're not, writing stories, do you pleasure read?
Yeah, I do have some books that I read just for the heck of it.
Yeah.
Just yeah.
Which if you don't mind my asking, what books do you like reading for fun?
Usually just like what's the guy's name? Let me look. Christopher Moore is
Okay.
an author that I come back to occasionally. Is just something fun to write because his stories are just really out there and just really goofy, and it's just fun to kind of get away from the seriousness of nonfiction at that point. So
Oh yeah.
yeah,
Yeah. You want to dive on the fiction part. That's kind of the escapism. That's the beautiful part of it.
yeah, definitely.
Mhm.
Yeah, I keep saying definitely a lot. I do my own editing, so like I notice when something repeats a lot, so I'm just hearing myself say it. But I also sometimes just kind of dabble in science related books and things that are just, for fun. And I have a book that I'm working on right now. It's in the realm of science fiction,
Mhm.
and it's starting to lean more toward the realm of hard sci-fi, which is more scientifically accurate.
Really?
And yeah, it's kind of a mixture of that and just a little bit of, artistic license, because I don't want it to be overly complicated and I still want it to be,
No.
fun and enjoyable for anybody. But some of the books that go with that regarding like physics and stuff are just things that I just find really interesting. So sometimes I just go back to those too.
Oh yeah. Well, and if you can communicate the story and the information in such a way that it's not over the top of the heads of people reading it,
Hmm.
that is, you put it in layman's. I mean, from
Yeah.
that's really important too. So as long as if you've got someone who's a scientist who can help you out with the jargon, and then you have someone who can help you put it into layman's if you're not the person doing it, I think that way you don't alienate think people who are like, I have no idea what this person is talking about. I basically cracked open a physics book and I'm trying to read through the terms.
Yeah, that's where I'm finding a little bit of the challenge is trying to kind of make it a little more accessible and stuff because I've been studying this kind of stuff for several years, so it's
Yeah.
it's I'm familiar with all the terminology and everything, like, things that might uh go a little unnoticed, things people might not understand. So it's
Yeah. You're
but
like,
yeah, it's something I just want to mostly just be, a fun thing too. It's a
sure.
mixture of dark comedy and stuff like that.
Perfect. Yeah, you don't want it to become it's now become a peer review journal at a college. It's like, no, that's not the intention for this.
Oh yeah, I want to stay far away from that.
Yeah, yeah. Let's
I'm
not
not
go
writing
there.
a paper, I'm writing a book.
Exactly. Exact. Supposed to be fun, enjoyment. It's supposed to be entertainment. It's supposed to be moving, captivating, all the ing words that we want to ensue.
Right.
Hmm.
Most of it is really just like, is this possible to include in the story? Like, just like for instance, I think one people are really familiar with is like in Back to the Future, everyone always talks about the hoverboards and stuff.
Hmm.
And so there was a similar concept in the book, and I was like, I mean, could something like this actually be made? So and it turns out it actually could, but
Cool.
yeah. So it's mostly looking into those kinds of topics and just trying to understand how they might work,
Yeah.
and so it doesn't really go into like intense detail of like this is why it works, and and here's 20 paragraphs on why it works or anything like that. So
And in the glossary, here's a tech manual for how to make this thing and how to operate it.
exactly.
Yeah, we
Drawn
don't need
out
anything
a
like that.
blueprint.
No, like I said, creative liberties. That's okay. That's okay. We can have fun with it. We don't have to. I mean, you've seen movies like up Disney movies where in like what was the movie Up where balloons carried a house off. We all know that's not true,
But it's cool.
but
So
it's cool. Exactly. It's okay.
yeah.
We have to sometimes suspend the logic in your mind just to enjoy the story, and that's kind of how it has to go. So if
Mhm.
people can't do that, then that's not the story for them. That's
Yeah.
it is okay. It is okay. Now, whereabouts this next project you got? Do you know about when you're gonna have it released for the world?
The sci-fi one
Yeah,
or
and whichever one's
oh,
furthest along.
um, the one furthest along is I would say the fantasy
Okay,
one. Like I said, probably in the next few months or so.
awesome.
And I'm still kind of fleshing out the world for the sci-fi one. So it's got like 4 chapters written so far.
Okay.
It's not quite ready yet. So
Now, are you an edit as you go person, or do you write it and then come back later?
I'm a little bit of both. If I
Okay.
notice something while I'm writing, I'll fix it, but
Yeah,
I
yeah, yeah.
don't focus on it.
Yeah, no,
I'll
I'm
let it
thinking
go.
like more like you finish a chapter and then you just go back immediately and kind of fix it right away. Because I know there's some authors who will do that, who actually their first draft is their final draft because they've
Mhm.
worked on every single chapter line by line like crazy people.
Yeah.
I couldn't do that. That would drive me nuts.
Oh, definitely.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Going back and reading it over and over again, checking everything. And then
Hmm.
before I move to the next chapter, yeah,
Yeah.
I need some time away from it.
Yeah, me too. Me too. It's so funny. I've talked about like outlining and, planning, and I've tried doing that. I do have like, here's the structure in which I want my crud to go, but I swear to God, it doesn't matter. I'll blow that out of the water with any chance I can. Like, oh, this is the path I want to go. And then I had an idea mid-writing, and now that whole thing is just shot to hell, and now I have to completely revamp everything. As long as this event and this event get in the story, I'm happy. So yeah, it's a fun one when you actually get in the flow and actually work on stuff, and you just like 3 hours goes by, and you like, I just sat down. But that's
Hmm.
that's that's what we want. I think that's hopefully what we want.
Yeah, that's what I want when I sit down and write, because
Yeah.
last thing I want is to sit there and keep looking at the clock and just thinking, like, am I done with my quota today? Come on.
I have definitely done that before. Like, okay, have I made my promise to myself? Okay, can I go? Will I not feel guilty when I step away from this?
Right.
Yeah, it's difficult. I won't lie. Now, who did you publish through?
I published through a local company called Kitsap Publishing. I
Okay,
think I haven't spoken to anybody at the company for a couple of years now, since I haven't had anything to bring them yet. But
sure.
I don't know if they've gone through this like rebranding or like not really rebranding, but there's this name Repro Space
Hmm.
that's part of it, and I don't know if they're moving to that or if they're keeping the name Kitsap
Okay,
Publishing.
yeah,
So yeah, it's something I'm not clear on, but they were Kitsap Publishing when I went through them.
gotcha, gotcha. Pretty when you did go through them, pretty good to work with.
Oh yeah, yeah, they were very, very great to work with.
Excellent, excellent. Well, hopefully, are you going to go through it with them again? Contact them after you get your fantasy one off the ground?
Possibly, yeah, I need to speak with them again soon and just see how things are going. Because when I started working with them, they were just starting to get the business off the ground.
Oh,
So
okay, okay.
yeah,
They're pretty
they were
new.
relatively new at the time. Yeah.
Okay, gotcha, gotcha. Yeah, I'm always trying to collect more publishers. That way, can give more people kind of a, hey, if you want to go this one, here's how many publishers lay it out for them, kind of like a menu. Like go and just try to check them out. Do they have a particular genre they like to publish, or it was just kind of anyone and everybody who, or any good story that came in front of them?
It seems more like anything good.
Okay,
Since looking over some of the books in the past, they range from memoirs to sci-fi to all kinds of different things. Yeah.
good. I think that's the way to go about it anyway. But that's
Yeah,
me. That's
probably.
me. That's me. I've seen some publishers who aim more, they have like romance ones, they have some more fantasy ones, and but anyway, well, poetry even, but it all depends. And they're usually smaller when they have just specific genres they work with. I feel like if you're brand new and you want to get your name out there as a publicist or publisher, excuse me, having more genres to adhere to more genres is the best method. But I'm not in the publishing world as a publisher, so. I don't know that side of the business. I don't know it at all. But anywho, well, so where can people get copies of your book if they want to dive in on some a good horror story?
The two easiest places to find it would be Amazon and Barnes and Noble.
Okay, nice, nice. And what is the title again, just for everyone listening?
Closed Campus.
Closed Campus by Charlie Rott. Excellent, excellent, excellent. Well, Charlie, I really appreciate you coming on and chatting with me a little about your book. I really hope that it can take off, and I hope your new ones coming out in the near future are also going to do well.
I hope so too.
Well, like I said, thank you again. And when you get these out, and if you want to do some more promoting for your stories, I'll be happy to meet with you again and chit chat some more.
Oh, that sounds great.
Awesome, awesome. All right, guys. Well, I hope you guys enjoyed this. Go get some horror. Check it out. Again, Closed Campus by Charlie Rott. I hope you guys have a great rest of your day. And as always, stay mighty and keep reading.